Hey guys.
Hey guys.
I'm Megan.
I'm Stephanie.
We are
Barnbestiesllc. And
we are here with Jessica.
We have a friend who has very nicely allowed us to come. She's giving us a tour of her barn. This is actually part two.
Part two.
If you haven't checked out part one, please do so. But this is Jessica. She is about to take us into the next section of her barn. So tell us a little bit about how this section became.
Okay, so this barn goes on long forever, and part of that is because how the ground was laid out. There's 40 acres here, but it slopes downhill really fast out here because it goes down to the swamp. We're right on the edge of the swamp, which is beautiful. I actually absolutely love living right next to the swamp. It's so pretty year round. But we didn't have the funds to pay for enough fill to make the building site any different than to just use as much level ground as we could. So
that's actually probably a pretty good tip. Megan's talked about how the way hers is laid out, about how when her parents originally built the barn, you had to have a lot of fill put in, but as she's added on as well, kind of taking into consideration and using the lay of the land as best you can.
Right.
Because it is very expensive.
Your site preparation is a huge chunk of it.
It's key. And taking into consideration days like today, water. We've talked about that as well.
And climate change that has happened, you know, like I'm used to a lot of snow. I'm sure you're used to a lot of snow. Now we have ice. What do we do in the winter? I want a treadmill. So while they're stuck inside, they can go on the treadmill, but I don't have one yet. It's coming.
It's on the list.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, all right. So, this looks great. So this
how many stalls?
So there's 9 more stalls on this side. This addition where the stalls are actually went up maybe 25 years ago. But originally it just had these 4 big stalls on this end that were big enough for mares and foals. And then in the back where those 5 stalls are now was hay storage. So we kept hay there after we didn't have to keep it.
This was still the arena.
This was still the arena.
Then you added on the arena and probably the other stalls.
Right.
This is my barn. This is the same.
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
This is how we do things.
Cool. Because we were supposed to be private, and I was supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer, and now I'm a horse trainer.
There you go.
And I keep adding on.
That's interesting.
You're my people.
I was going to be a lawyer if I wasn't a horse trainer.
Yeah.
I like law stuff.
Hey, if you don't want to be a lawyer, be a horse trainer.
You won't make as much money, but you'll probably be happier.
You'll be happier. Okay.
All right, so this is great.
Okay, so once this brand new arena went up, this went up the end of 2013. And it's something I never thought I'd have. But we figured out how to put the funding together to do it. And
they hear mom.
Yeah, they do. So this was a big game changer for me to have all this space. And the question was, well, we have X much money available. Do you want to make it smaller and heat it, insulate it, etc., or do you want to spend it on space? And after all the years working in that little arena, I wanted the space.
That's understandable.
So it's not insulated. I don't have a drop ceiling. Yes, I wish I had those things, but I would way rather have the space. And on the bitter cold days, we just don't work horses.
Right. You take a day off.
Yeah.
Do paperwork.
Exactly. That's exactly what I do.
So what size did this end up? I'm sorry about that.
You're fine.
What size did this end up as?
So this is 140 long and 65 wide. If we would have gone 70 wide, we would have needed double trusses and it would have been more expensive.
It starts getting more expensive. So this is what we like to call pole shed, which is meaning that it's wood. Megan has both a pole shed and your new indoor arena is actually concrete footing and steel trusses and steel built building. So you see a lot of my building is pole shed. Same thing.
Right.
So because when you start getting into considerations for putting up an actual metal or a steel building, you do get the concrete. You have to have the concrete like foundation or footings, and it gets more expensive, but you can go a lot bigger.
Yep.
So
I like
this is great. This looks nice and big.
Yeah,
it really does.
So things I like about it, I like the angled kick walls that we did. My husband and I did those ourselves. We copied a friend of mine, Tammy Cutsworth.
I was just going to ask you, how did you come up with your, because everybody always asks that, and I'm like, you just go find somebody who has one in the arena that you like, and you figure the angle out, and you copy it.
Right, right.
Like if I was building an indoor, I'd be going over to Megan's and copying hers.
It's the same, yeah.
Just
copy.
Yeah.
And
so your builder didn't do that for you. You guys put your kickboards in. Okay.
Right. And that's a money saver.
The footing feels nice.
This footing is something I love.
What is it?
So this footing.
Tell us what you got here. It's so squishy.
It's a clay base. Then we had a landscaper come in with what they call a gill rake and dig grooves an inch deep, an inch apart into the base, and pack a really coarse sand into it an inch deep. That turns your base into a sandpaper. So even if they get through that top cushion, they're a lot less likely to slip and fall.
Because the clay is slippery.
Right.
That's really ingenious.
Exactly.
So that's how they did that.
That I definitely learned from somebody else. That I learned from Ray LaCroix, who was a top Arab trainer in the country for like 20 years.
So it makes it anti-skid.
Yeah.
That's ingenious. Okay. Because we do, parts of Wisconsin, we do get a lot of clay.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you can utilize something like that and make it work, it's a lot more cost effective. Because to put in, otherwise you'd have to bring in like limestone screenings, and that's added expense, trucking all that in and paying for the actual material.
Right.
So I've never heard of that. That's ingenious.
So then the top here, this is mason sand and white shavings.
Okay, so it's a mix.
So it's a mix.
It's so, I mean, I can. How would you explain this? I feel so squishy and fluffy.
Like they're a heated bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
it feels amazing under the feet.
Yeah.
It really does.
Right.
So is it what's the ratio? 50-50?
So it's 50-50, and I put some dust conditioner in it.
What do you use?
I just started using, it's from True Leaf, which is like a gardening company. And it's some sort of organic stuff because I don't want anything that's going to pull moisture out of horses' feet,
like the
or that might get on my cats and be toxic.
Yeah,
sure.
So I just started using that. There's another product from Ram Fencing, I think it's called Moisture Lock. That's also it's the polymer crystals and not toxic. But that got really expensive. So I decided to try this, and so far I'm very happy with it.
So how often do you have to put it in?
So, well, actually, I'm still figuring it out because we just replaced this footing this summer.
Okay.
This is what I had originally. It lasted 10 years, kind of wore out.
Right.
We replaced it.
I was literally going to just ask you how often you have to change out and put new footing in.
Right.
Because people, footing wears out.
Right.
It does.
Well, here's the thing. If I had done something different with the first footing, I don't think I ever would have had to replace it. But so what happens when you don't have heat and insulation, when there's a horrible cold snap, it pulls all the moisture out of that, out of the wood product, the sawdust, and it all goes up there on the ceiling on little crystals, and it warms up. Then it rains in here, but the sawdust is just dead after that. It loses its fluff.
Okay.
So what I did then was just to bring more sawdust in and fluff it up every spring.
Yeah.
But what I should have done is also be periodically adding some more sand so that the ratio stayed the same.
Okay.
So going forward, I'm going to do 50-50 to keep the proportion the same. And I bet you I won't ever have to replace it again.
So I got a question for you. You said you just replaced this in the last year. Did you keep your old footing and reuse it somewhere on your horse property, or did you have them carted out?
We pushed it out. It's sitting there if we want to use it for something else.
Because you could use it in gate areas if you needed to, or...
Yeah, it's there if we want it.
If you needed emergency sand on an icy day.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
so
what is your outdoors footing? I know we're not going to see it.
Right.
But what
the
footing?
Outdoor is about half and half clay and sand, and that's another place where I was fortunate because that was already on the property. They did not have to buy it. The interstate runs right behind this property. And when the interstate went through, they left some of the fill for the road, 2 piles of it on the property. And so it's partly that, and it's partly what was already here, and it's awesome. It's great footing, but I just lucked into that. Because if I had to buy that, it probably would have been 60 grand. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot.
Dirt is not cheap.
No, it's not. And again, horse people, we make do and we find things.
Make do.
We learn how to use it. It's through talking with other horse people sometimes that you come up with these ideas. This feels, I mean, it's so, it really it's so amazing. Squishy.
Yeah, it's like really expensive synthetic footing.
Yeah.
It's the same feel and the same
it really
quality.
does. It feels bouncy and it feels, I mean, it.
Do you find like your horses move differently on it as well?
They do.
Yeah.
And so do I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
My knees do not get as sore, and
I love it.
Right. So it does great in winter because we have crazy winters. It's either really cold or it's wet and damp.
Right.
Or you know, all the things.
So if we get a brutal cold snap, yes, it's going to freeze. But like I said, I'm not going to work horses in that anyway.
Right.
What is your cutoff?
About 15 degrees.
Okay, I'm about 20.
Yeah.
I used to be like 5'10", and now I'm like, forget it.
I know, right? You gradually learn that you're not getting anything constructive done.
Exactly.
But then she runs in the wintertime to a warmer climate.
I do, yeah. I've become weaker, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with this.
That's great. So do you host clinics or anything here?
We do some clinics.
Do like shows
we do some clinics. We do some barn shows. The barn shows are really popular for like the kids in the lesson program, but also for riders that just want an opportunity to get out and work on something.
What was I going to ask? I don't know.
So I'm just curious. So Wisconsin has a huge history. Obviously, we're known as a dairy state. We have a huge history, a foundation of FFA and 4-H. So do you have a big 4-H in the area, and are you at all involved in it? We are not really per se. You do run a kids camp and everything, but it's not 4-H affiliated.
It's horsemanship.
Because, you know, it's definitely an opportunity, but is that anything you get involved with or no?
So I have some kids that show 4-H that take lessons with me, and also some that are involved in that WEHA program. That's the high school kids that come for lessons, or they'll come for a group lesson or something. But I'm not, you know, I don't help run those programs or anything.
Yeah. It's getting louder. I wonder if we should retreat into the barn a little.
Yeah,
it's raining pretty hard right now. This is really lovely. I mean, I guess I should have asked, is there anything else in there?
There's a round pen right outside that I could show you. But
why don't we go ahead and plan on this being for a part 3? We're going to say thank you guys. This is part 2. Make sure you've checked out part 1. We are definitely getting prepped for part 3, so don't go anywhere. Hit all the buttons. Make sure you follow us on all our socials. If you got questions, leave them down in the comments. And see y'all on part 3.